Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. I'm going to do a quick review on adding and subtracting decimals. So I have a problem here on the whiteboard. It is -8 minus 3.21. And as you know, when you learned in elementary school to add and subtract decimals, you should know that you are lining them up by decimal point. So the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what my sign is going to be so I don't forget about that in the end. So here we have to remember our integer rules. We have signs the same, so that means we are going to add and keep the sign, okay? So add and keep the sign. Okay, so our sign is negative, so we know our final answer is going to be negative, all right? So I'm going to put that on the side here so I don't forget, so that my final answer is going to be a negative. So now I'm going to line them up. A whole number 8, and I'm going to put a decimal point, and I'm going to need 2 placeholders because my second number goes out 2 place values. And then we have 3.1. Now remember, we said we were going to add because the signs were the same. So here we need to add these and keep the sign. So I'm going to carry over my sign now so I don't forget about it. And then I'm just going to add these. Always line up your decimal. 8 plus 3 is 11. So my final answer here would be a -11 and 21 hundredths, okay? So it might take a little bit of getting used to, you're seeing this as a subtraction problem, but you really need to add them because the signs are the same here, all right? Let's try another one. Okay, so here, if you'll notice, my signs are the same. They are both negative, okay? So I am adding them and keeping the sign. I just have to remember that I'm lining up my decimals. Whenever I do an addition problem, I always put the number with the most digits on top. It just so happens they both have 3 digits, so it's not going to matter anyway. So we have 3.29. Put my sign over here so I don't forget that it's going to be a negative. And then I am adding 12.6. Don't forget, you have to line up your decimals. I'm going to put a 0 as a placeholder. I'm going to add these. Don't forget, my sign is going to be negative, so I'm going to bring that over right away so I don't forget about it. 9 plus 0 is 9. 2 plus 6 is 8. Drop down my decimal point. 3 plus 2 is 5. And bring down my 1. So this would give me a -15.89. All right, let's try another one. Okay, so here we have 5.23 minus a -9.11. So remember, this is a subtraction sentence. So this is where we would typically do keep, change, change. We would keep our 5.23, change the subtraction to addition, change the -9.11 to a positive 9.11. So keep, change, change, okay? And now we are just going to take 5.23, line them up by decimal point, okay? 3 and 1 is 4, 2 and 1 is 3, bring down my decimal. 5 and 9 is 14, so positive 14.34. Okay, so instead of doing keep, change, change, what you can do is, I'm going to show you a different way, and you would normally learn this later on in math, but I think it's a good time to show you. When we have 2 signs next to each other, like we do here, even though it's separated by a parentheses, I'm going to use my multiplication rules to make this one sign. So here, a negative times a negative. Remember the multiplication rules. When my signs are the same, your answer is positive. When my signs are different, your answer is negative. So these are the same, so I can change this to a positive. And I could just rewrite this problem as 5.23 plus 9.11, okay? So instead of doing keep, change, change, you can do this. Use the multiplication rule, circle them, it turns into an addition problem for this one. Now let's say we had a different problem. Okay, so let's say we have this, 21.16 plus a -10.4. So here, you can just change it into a subtraction problem by circling. Let me just use a different color. First of all, it's an addition problem. So here you could just go by your rules of signs are different, subtract, take the sign of the bigger number. Or if you don't want to have 2 signs next to each other, A positive times a negative becomes a negative. So then you would get 21 and 16 hundredths minus 10 and 4 tenths. And then you would go ahead and subtract these. So if you like this method better to change it so you have one sign, you can do that. Or you can just, if it's a subtraction problem, do keep, change, change. Or if it's an addition problem, just remember our integer rules. Okay? All right, one last example. All right, in this example, we have 3 different things going on. So we have negative 4.2 plus 2.3 minus 0.7. So all you're going to do is you're just going to kind of break it up little by little. So I'm going to do the negative 4.2 plus the 2.3 first, come up with an answer, and then subtract 0.7 from it. So here, my signs are different. I'm going to subtract, take the sign of the bigger number. My bigger number is the 4.2. So I know that my final answer is going to be, well, for now, it's going to be negative because this is 2 steps. So I am subtracting. So I'm taking 4.2. I am subtracting 2.3. And I know that I said my answer was going to be negative because I'm taking the sign of the bigger number. So here I'm subtracting. And 12 minus 3 is 9. Carry down my decimal. 3 minus 2 is 1. This would give me a negative 1.9. Now, I have negative 1.9 minus 0.7. So negative 1.9. Let's just make some room here. So right now the problem is negative 1.9 minus 0.7. So signs, if you're thinking about this, you could do keep, change, change, or you should start getting used to, these are the same sign. Add and keep the sign. So I'm going to add these 2, keep the negative sign, okay? So add and keep this. I know my negative sign is going to be my final answer is going to be negative rather, and I'm adding these 2. So I'm taking 1.9 and I'm adding 0.7. 9 and 7 gives me 16. Carry down my decimal. 1 and 1 gives me 2. And I know that my final answer is going to be negative, so it is negative 2.6 as my final answer. So the one thing you just have to remember, this all goes back to our integer rules. And instead of whole numbers, now we just happen to be working with decimals. But the rules don't change, okay? So if your signs are the same, you add, keep the sign. If your signs are different, you subtract, take the sign of the bigger number if you're adding. And then if you're subtracting, you can do keep, change, change. Or if you have 2 signs next to each other, you can use the multiplication method that I showed you as well. All right, that is it for now, and I will talk to you guys soon.